Okay, well, let's start things off here at Acre. Get at least a turn underway. Then it's my bedtime. Past my bedtime, but... Alright. So to start things off, we have this planning segment. And the Crusaders obviously aren't going to launch an assault right now. Yes, I could make one and try to do ladder assaults. But they're not a good idea. They're worthwhile once you have a breach to help try to expand the problems that you're inflicting. Historically, the Crusaders made several before they got a breach, but I see it as a bit foolish to try to do that. Historically, they didn't get anywhere with them, and I don't want to waste my troops trying to assault the city. So I'm going to do a bombardment. Likewise, for the Muslim player, I want to do the least effective thing I can do, essentially. Now, this might be a reason why you do an assault right off the bat, because you know the army of Saladin's not going to be coming in at that point. But I'm just going to do the army of Mosul. You could say, well, you're kind of taking some of the secret out. Yeah, but I wouldn't count on a real game going much different from that. So that's our allocation. I have 6 points to allocate with the Muslims. I'm going to allocate it all to wall repair. There's nothing else I really need to do. Now, there's one thing the Crusaders might want to do, which is to march forward and try to fill the fosse. They have to do an assault to do that. That's one reason to kind of do it. Again, though, I want to get close to getting some breaches before I launch an attack. And I've set up my assault towers over here. Those will help me if I make an attack. And then my catapults are all back here ready to fire. And that all fits nicely. So that means we're going to have a fairly simple turn, as most turns will be. We can do a strategic movement to reallocate, but I set up the way I did for a reason. The Crusaders could try to shift, but without an assault underway, it doesn't make much sense. Now I get to tunnel. Now I only have 4 points to tunnel. And each tunnel base costs me 2, and I must build them all before I start doing any additional tunneling. I have to start them at least 8 hexes from the wall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll drop one here under Philip. 3220 now. I can use pen because... Okay, so this is going to be one of my bases, and hopefully I drew that in your vision. I can't see when I'm doing that. And let's put another one. I don't want it to be too close, because then it becomes fairly obvious where I'm, that the tunnel is going to be coming from that direction. I'd rather... Essentially, the die rolls are going to cause the tunnel to diverge from where it belongs, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to put this one down in 2722. Actually, 2721. The reason they have to be so far away is they have to be out of range, sort of the maximum range of the catapults, because if the catapults aboard the city could hit them, they would just mess with that base completely. Obviously, it could be fortified, but there's only so much goods that they were able to gather. Wood is rare in this area of the world, especially good stout wood. The armor and such that the big catapults were built out of and protected by, and heavy timbers, a lot of that was transported from Europe, actually, in order to make this siege work. All right, so that's my 4 points of tunnel building, and I'm going to have to spend 4 next turn to build 2 more tunnels elsewhere. So you can kind of expect that you're not going to see any tunneling happening for a while, any real action in the tunnels. And now we go to the bombardment, and the Crusaders get to allocate their bombards. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these, and luckily I have 5 dice. I get to pick my walls. Let's take a look at what we're going to be doing here. So the most I can get is 6 hits. So let's open up with 2 dice there from these guys. 6, that's their range. And, well, it seems to me a good idea, having learned from my other game, to try to focus my attacks all in one area. So that's what I'm going to do. 2 dice on that, 2 dice on that, 1 die on that. Let's open up with the 1 die, and I don't really know the table. 3, 5, and then 6 are my numbers. Get a 4, that's going to be 1 point over here. I'll put that under the unit, although I don't know what works the best. 1 more point on this wall. It's 5 points on the next wall. Well, that's not good. Got a lot of breaches there. Now the counter bombardment gets to take place. It really doesn't matter too much what I shoot at. Oh geez, let me move this catapult over. There was a reason he was over there. Alright. So we'll shoot this one. I could have done that during strategic movement. And we'll shoot this one back here, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. Okay, so let's go for the right flank one, and we'll be on the counter bombardment table. I need a 6 to do something. And I don't get it. It doesn't really matter which one I hit, if I hit any, because, again, they can strategic move, so they're not really restricted in any way. Okay, so that's my counter bombardment, and now we go to the damage repair. Now, I have 6 points allocated to wall repair. I'm going to allocate a die each to the slightly damaged, and I'm going to allocate 4 dice to the really badly damaged piece. These are actually done sequentially, so let's take a look. I need a 2 or higher to succeed on the first 2 rolls. And one of them succeeds. And then now, I don't roll all 4 dice at once. Like I said, it's sequential. That's important because this first die needs a 4 or higher to repair a point. 2 on a 6. I get 2 points repaired, so now that's a 3. I'm not going to move the things around. But now I'm on the lower table, and I'll just roll the 3 remaining dice for that. And I get 1, 2, 3 hits. So I've repaired all 5 damage to that wall. And you can see, this is going to be kind of annoying, isn't it? Luckily I have tunnels which could take something down, but it is pretty damn tough to knock these walls down. Tougher actually, I think, than entire, because I just don't have that much firepower available. Now I go to the game turn indication phase. That's it for a turn. There's nothing else to do. It's going to go by fast, right? Well, there are going to be assaults, and there's the Saladin attacks counters, which could happen as well. Anyway, that's it for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow morning and do some more siege bombardment. Alright, just finished my second turn here of Acre. Not much different. A couple new tunnel bases. I have to get them all out before I start actually digging. And our wall damage is up to a total of 4. I don't know if that's any different from where we were. We've gotten different places where the walls have been damaged. But you can see, even with all my catapults working, I'm not going to get a lot of traction here. Not until I'm able to force the Muslims to start spending points on other things. Now, they're not going to spend any points on tunneling discovery until a certain amount of turns. So the quickest I can conceivably dig a tunnel is 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm still more than 3 hexes from, by definition, essentially, because I have to be at least 8 hexes away, right? So I'm still more than 3 hexes from the wall there. So it's within 2 turns they can start discovering my tunnels. However, the chances that I'll be able to get a complete run of tunnels that'll get me that close, that I'll be able to spend all my points off one tunnel base and not get blocked, because as soon as you get blocked you don't get to roll anymore that turn, is low. Chances are actually that I'm going to be moving all of my tunnels forward at once. No guarantees, but so the Muslim can look and say, well, I don't have to spend counter tunneling certainly for 2 turns, and probably more like 3 or 4. That's frustrating to the Crusader, but it means he doesn't really want to attack. I was mistaken about one thing, though. Probably more than one, but one that I noticed. When I talked about the army making the whole Saladin attacks take place as kind of depriving the Crusaders of a turn, that's true. But it also it doesn't give the Muslims any respite. They don't get to do any repairs on the wall during that or anything along those lines, because the wall repair happens during the bombardment and repair phase. The only thing that gets done, and you don't know at this point, is you get to spend points on tunnel discovery. Now, the Muslim does know if he takes an army, a Saladin attacks pit. What he doesn't know is if the Crusaders decide to attack. Then his wall repairs have no effect, but his anti-tunneling work still is effective. So there's kind of a, okay, how do you want to split your points with that thought that anything devoted to wall repair might just not get used. Of course, anything, you wouldn't devote anything to wall repair if you're taking the Saladin attacks pick. And if you are taking that, well, not only will you search for the tunnels, but you're kind of hoping that you're landing that blow at the same time as an attack, because it doesn't really cost you anything additional. It gives you a lot of troops to cope with that attack. Of course, there's very little reason for the Crusaders not to assault on the next turn after a Saladin attacks. It's not like the troops require any kind of recovery on either side. Okay, so now the Crusader has his 4 tunneling points, and I made a quick roll. Came up with a fairly unlikely result. I've decided to launch all my tunnels out of here. So I'm spending all 4 of my tunnel points out of this one tunnel here. Now, the Muslim player doesn't know this. This is, wow, 1, 2, 3. This is this one. Yeah, this is this one over here. But on the sheet, it's over here. And I know they're kind of hard to see. So I've got 4 points to spend there, and I just declare one. Let's see, is there a tunneling table? No, it's just buried in the rules what my chances are. I think it's anything but a 6. Yeah, anything but a 6 works, which is kind of cool. It means I have a pretty decent chance. I think I want to roll with my right hand. So one at a time I'll roll, and I'm just gonna kind of mark a path as I go, I guess. I'm gonna head down here to 1921. I don't know if you can see. My hand's in the way of the video screen. Then I'm gonna go to 1920. Then I'm gonna go to 1919. And finally, I'm going to go down to 1918. Okay, I have succeeded. So there's my tunnel. Wee. The Muslim's spending all his points on wall repair this turn, so that's not really an issue yet. Again, I'm going to delay a few turns before I actually start digging, start looking for those tunnels. Okay, now we went with a bombardment turn, and again, I've got the stupid army of Mosul committed. Now here's one of the problems that are difficulties that the Muslim player faces. Those decisions were made already, but I don't want to use all my 8 army of Mosul actions, because then it becomes only available on the turns when Saladin attacks. It's kind of a tricky balance, because it's the weakest of my 3 armies, but if the army of Egypt takes a lot of damage, it becomes weaker, right? So I want to make sure that I maintain a few army of Mosul picks, at least a couple, for the end game, in case the army of Egypt takes a lot of the fighting burden. Okay. And I'll just complete the bombardment work. There's nothing exciting going on. I moved one of my catapults on the wall to try to deal with the heavier conglomeration that's hitting that side of the wall. Exciting things happened during the bombardment phase. First of all, we got a breach. I gotta take this shirt off. This is killing me. A breach here, and the Muslims were unable to repair it. They've also got another couple points of wall damage on the walls here. So the bombardment is, once it starts to get some heavier effects, it becomes harder and harder for the Muslim to fix. I can fix the non-breaches pretty easily, but once I get to that 5 or 6 level, the die roll becomes more difficult, and I had enough damage on me, a 6, a 4, and a 3, I think, that I felt like I had to spread the repair chances. Nobody managed to succeed on the breach, so that's still open. So that it's going to start degrading the Muslim ability to repair the walls. But then there's also the danger here that just speaking without knowing what I'm saying is real early. Yeah, that's not really a good excuse, but I do it all the time. I'm going to need to start spending engineering points searching for the tunnels at some point. And maybe for clearing Foss if an assault happens. Although, I want to knock some walls down before I'm going to assault. Anyway, the other exciting thing that happened is took out one of the trebuchet. But it's only out for 1 turn. I said earlier 2 turns. It comes back 2 turns later during the strategic movement phase. That means it's out for 1 turn. I knock it down for 1 turn. And that's not terribly impressive, to tell you the truth. But that's what we got. I may want to consider whether or not I can launch a Saladin attacks. The reason is, well, yeah, I don't want to do it now. So this, if Saladin can get to a tunnel base, he can knock that tunnel out for the whole game. That can be very powerful. Now, I don't know which tunnels are which, and I don't know where I'd launch an attack to. But it's pretty tough to get a successful attack until the Crusaders are weakened. Unless they go ahead with their assault that they've planned already. Alright, well, we're pretty much at the end of turn 3 as well. And you can see this is a pretty fast-moving game, at least at when there's no assault. Unlike Tyre, where there's more to do, you have to maneuver the boats and everything. This one is just really a dice fest. Who can damage the walls? Who can repair them? What are your die rolls coming out for the first stage of the game until the assaults actually happen? And there aren't going to be that many assaults. Okay, after turn 4, you can see I've moved the wall damage markers out front so they're easier to cope with. As long as there's no assault going on, I don't have to worry too much. You can see the Muslims got better control over the breach and the other damage. The Crusaders got good rolls. The Muslims just got better rolls. But they've ignored the tunnel building. And right now, that tunnel is not far at all. It's gotten full successes out to here. And that's not necessarily a very likely place for the for the Muslim to be worried about a tunnel existing. And in fact, if that tunnel blows up, he may well think it's this base that fired it off and not this one, which may also confuse him because you can't run a tunnel through another tunnel. Which means if this base had drawn that tunnel here, then this one won't be digging through and over. And that's kind of an important distinction there. Okay. Anyway, there's a bit of a surprise factor to this tunnel as far as I'm concerned. Especially if I drop it even further down. Right now, it's fairly convincing that it's still there. The problem is I'll be doing my movement within range of the Muslim searches, and they are getting to the point where they're going to start considering making them. It would have been possible for the Crusaders to actually knock down a wall with that much tunnel building, but the most likely places they're going to go for are the exceptionally defensible places like the castle or the named towers, basically the prison. The accursed tower, but the castle is the utmost of the places, so there's kind of a, well, why worry about, you know, it's very unlikely that the Crusaders will go after this. Anyway, that's where we are, and with no breaches, it doesn't look likely that there'll be an assault next. Okay, the risk of putting all your eggs in one basket. My second roll, as I started to drift down to try to make it look like it was this tunnel base, well, I hit a rock. And that means I lose essentially 3 points, one for this space and the two others that I had allocated there. But I'm very close to having a permanent breach, so I'm pretty happy with that. Now the Muslims have allocated 4 points to breach to wall repair and 2 points to tunnel discovery. You can't ignore the tunnels. Now I have to kind of decide where I'm going to search, and this is kind of difficult because, you know, obviously I know where that tunnel is. I've been looking at it. I've been thinking about it. What I'm doing here is considering this is the primary place that I'd want to hit, secondary, and then there'd be a tertiary which I'd kind of randomize more. So what I'm going to do is 1 through 3 worry here, 4 or 5 over here, and a 6 somewhere else, and I'm not sure where. Okay. So my first tunnel attempt will be a look here. And I want to spread. I want to go out with some distance. So, you know, I could pick this hex, for example. It doesn't really matter because I know where the enemy. You know, the enemy isn't going to necessarily be there, but he may be there again. There may also be the, well, he's trying to slip around or something like that, where I might trigger a little bit closer. Let me roll for the second one. I'm not going to actually figure out which hex it is, because I know this one's not an issue. For the second pick, I'm going to do the same die roll, and I'll end up picking one around here. And again, that's not going to affect much. And you could say, well, you're really skewing things. You know, if I were playing the Muslims, I would be doing this, you know, inside-out game and all this. Yeah, quite possibly. You know, I did it with the Crusaders. Why wouldn't I do it with the Muslims? I don't have a good answer for that. This is just what I've chosen to do this time. Anyway, these failures may direct me elsewhere on my next tunnel discovery. And now we'll continue on into the bombardment phase because we did not do an assault. And once again, we took out one of the big... That's the good neighbor. I like the names the Crusaders gave their catapults. That's one of my favorite. God's Own Sling is pretty cool too, though. The actual damage, this went well for the Muslims with only 4 repair rolls. They're keeping the damage to a minimal, so that's not too bad. And I guess we shift to yet another turn. And these turns are not short, but not very interesting. But I kind of like games that are just kind of these fiddly, you know, roll some dice, see what happens, in the framework of something that allows some decisions. And this game does allow some decisions, even if most of the actions you're taking, most of the turns aren't. It's kind of like the SPQR, Great Battles of History type stuff. Really, most games that I enjoy, most of the decisions, most of the actions I'm taking aren't really these key decisions. If I have too many decisions to make in a game and they come too tightly, I find that just frustrating. Okay, now we're on the, on turn 6, I've worked my way to the Muslim tunnel discovery segment. Not a lot changed in the game so far, except I actually committed the Egyptian army this time, but it's a bombard again. We've got our tunnel dug under here, and we'll worry about that in a moment. The other, I only spent 2 points to get there. The other 2 points I spent on this tunnel, but it failed. So now I've got to maybe find a different way out. And that's one of the things that can really skew what the Muslims assume, is the failures can end up jig-jagging your tunnel all over the place anyway. So the Crusader may not even have to be too clever here to totally confuse. Now, the Muslims, because they've got a catapult out of play and not a lot of wall damage, decided to commit 3 points to tunnel discovery. I'm going to split those up into sectors. 1, 2, because these were already covered. 3, 4, I'm not too worried about this. 5, and then a 6th I'll open up with a reroll with this one available again. But I don't expect anything going through the for the what is it? The Melodious Tower. All right, so I've got 3 dice to roll. Let's see what we get here. So I got 2 5s and a 4. I'm for some reason worried about what might happen here and here. In essence, this is pretty iffy, but I've gone, first 2 turns don't count, 1, 2, 3, 4 turns. There could be 16 tunnel points, I guess, having been spent. What did I spend? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, so with 16 I could have gotten just about anywhere. So within this, I'm gonna go my 3 hexes out. 20, 15, 14, and 13 will be my targets. I'm gonna try to hit, looks like 2014 there. These others I don't think are an issue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's ignore this because I'm not going to go there. That's pretty clear. Let's do one at 2012. And 2011. So we've got kind of a cluster trying to hit, and these are pretty good choices actually, but you can see I kind of randomized it. Now the only one I'm really worried about is 2014, and oops, I just missed. So the Crusader just declares misses for all of those. And now the Muslim is pretty sure that he's not going to be attacked on this side. But he doesn't have much time to gloat about that or think about what he's going to do next, because the Crusader is able to demolish this space. And I'm going to get myself a big nasty counter to put over that space. That's a demolished wall now. Now, if you know you've got a wall demolishing coming up, that may be a turn to do an assault on, just because of the shock value of that wall falling down. Will be, it's a position that maybe the Muslims were not prepared to see destroyed. For example, here they've got things being wrecked no matter what. They can't do much about that. But alas, I didn't choose that this time. Maybe should have with the sling out of play. As we move to the end of the turn, what we see is, let's get in the dark here. We had actually a full breach there, but it got repaired. Basically, the Muslims only had 3 repair dice this turn, which kind of hurt them. But I think they got away pretty light, actually, given the amount that they committed to the tunnel. As to this tunnel, this is used now. There's no way I can reuse this tunnel base or branch off of it or anything like that. I've blown this tunnel. The thing that the Muslims don't know is that it's this one and not this one. So they may be surprised to find another attack over on this side. Anyway, we're about to start another turn. I think I'm going to load this one up. It's about time for my work. And that seems like a good kind of pausing place. Not just, because I have to go to work, but because I think we've seen some dramatic events in the bombardment phase. We probably don't want to do an assault after the amount of time I've already spent on this video.